Hellenism and Hebraism in Paradise Lost. The Paradise Lost by John Milton is undoubtedly one of the greatest epics in the world literature. It is multidimensional, encyclopedic in approach, and presents a harmonious meeting ground of a number of ideas, chiefly Hebraic and Hellenic. It also alludes to Puritan ideas, the movement of Reformation which had been bunched during the age of Milton. Thus, Paradise Lost is an epitome of various sources fused together in a very pleasant manner in the poem. Of all these impacts on Milton perceived in Paradise Lost, the most distinguished is that of Hellenic or classical. It is presented through Milton's espousal of Renaissance ideas. Although the theme of Paradise Lost is religious, the entire superstructure of the epic is classical. Milton freely drew on the epic traditions laid down by Homer in Iliad and Odyssey. The character of Satan, which is highly contentious but seems essentially to have been projected in the spirit of Renaissance, a Hellenic or classical influence on Milton. Satan is also conceived as an embodiment of freedom, self-will, love for beauty, and revolt against tyrannical authority. Another feature of his classical affinity is the elaborate and extensive use of classical Greek and Roman mythology. All the major events have been described with reference to these gods and goddesses. Milton's style also carries an unmistakable stamp of classicalism. A large number of epic similes from Homer and Virgil are scattered throughout the Paradise Lost. Thus, his classical tendency is apparent partly in the theme of the epic and partly in the style. The choice of form, the elaborate description and simile, the fondness of classical allusions, the sublimity of the style, and Milton's very egoism are all explicit instances of his classical predilection. Another significant impact noticeable in Paradise Lost is that of Reformation. Reformation was a religious movement aimed at the cultivation of religious, moral, and spiritual values. The spirit of Reformation includes all that Hebraism stands for: spiritual discipline, moral authority, and otherworldly outlook. The writers working under the influence of Reformation championed theological dogma rather than humanistic culture. They aimed at self-purification rather than the cultivation of art or music. They were opposed to all kinds of frivolous and artistic pursuits. They were Puritans to whom religion and morality were the eminent concerns, and they looked askance at learning of classical masters and the address of beauty and art. They never practiced literature for the sake of literature. The writers influenced by the Reformation, Puritanism or Hebraism were moralists, preachers and reformers rather than humanists or artists. Milton's childhood was spent at a time when the forces of Renaissance were in full bloom. His youth witnessed the fruition of Puritanism and his old age marked the consummation of Puritan ideas. The theme of paradise lost is essentially, in religious terms, aimed to justify the ways of God to man.
Paragraph number 4. Thus, the subject is essentially biblical and traceable to Milton's Puritan beliefs. And the poem also seems to conclude that salvation of man is through the righteousness of Jesus Christ. The character of Adam is also conceived in the light of Puritan ideals, but it may be remarked that Milton was not a narrow-minded religious man. He combined in himself the humanism of Renaissance with the spiritual fervor of Puritanism. Paragraph number 5. The story of the fall of man, which Milton chose as the main event for his great epic, is actually an account given in the Bible. Whether Milton succeeded in his aim of telling the story of first disobedience to justify the ways of God to man is rather debatable. The conflict in the epic is not external but rather a spiritual conflict. The epic is also replete with references to Hebrew mythology.
Paragraph number 6.
The above illustrations clearly show that Milton's Paradise Lost is a great work based on a harmonious blend of Hebraic and Hellenic forces. There are no extremes but rather a congenial balance in the two different philosophies of life, and herein lies undoubtedly Milton's great skill and art. Thank you.